My extremist classmate exposed herself and accidentally revealed that she had unalived her ex-husband. I don't know what to do with this information. So I am enrolled in a social media marketing class, and just a few weeks ago I was partnered up with a 56-year-old crazy woman named Marina. I knew her to be a conspiracy theorist indulging in extremist Obama as alien-type views, and the fact she liked to eat her own nails after cutting them grossed me out. Nonetheless, I tried to get to know her, thinking she could be nice in her own way. But boy was I wrong. I tried to accommodate her for any preferences she'd have on the project, such as choosing what the topic of the project would be. She immediately starts telling me half of her life story, just out of nowhere, and focused particularly about a skin issue she had that she claimed doctors only made worse, and how she cured herself with herbs and essential oils. Her rambling just left me scratching my head, and just to break the awkward silence I said we could pick that as a brand idea: natural remedies, food supplements and cosmetics brands that's not some MLM or a cult, and she immediately agreed and smiled like a little girl, which back then made me kinda happy. After then she picked the name, idea for a logo and motto without asking me for an opinion, saying it felt important to her, and that since I had no experience with this niche I should learn from her. She insisted so much I had to comply, and that's when hell started for me. She would call and message me on WhatsApp constantly, insisting to see me work in real time on the designs, logos, mock-ups etc. because she needed to supervise my actions. Her excuse being I'm a little girl that hasn't known the world yet. I'm literally 30. She never liked any of my work and forced me to redo things over and over again. I'm on the spectrum and have a very hard time setting boundaries with people or dealing with the idea of displeasing someone. So I kept pushing myself to stay strong and keep going. It's in one of those calls that she starts telling me some of the most unhinged stuff I've ever heard in my life. After seeing me drink a sip of an energy drink, she screamed at me to toss the garbage away, and then explains to me the reason why. In her opinion, energy drinks, sodas and junk food are infested with nanomachines that infect the human body and rewrites their DNA. She then explains that that's because the great powers are not aliens like most think but androids and AI hive minds, ready to enslave humanity through biomechanical control. She also keeps going on about how AIs have existed since before Christ, came from an ancient civilization before the Great Reset, and that all great men in history were actually androids or giants. She also threw in the fact she's sure dinosaurs are nothing but a fairy tale and could have never existed. The first incident, the biggest one, happened last month, on one weekend evening. Instead of slaving away for her, I went out with my mom to visit some friends and be back home the next morning. I forgot my phone home and realized that too late, but since Marina and I hadn't agreed to work that night, I thought nothing of it. Oh man, was I naive. My phone was blown up with messages and phone calls, all from Marina, except a couple messages from another classmate of mine that told me Marina had called him obsessively with demands of him showing up at my front door to make sure I was okay. Later that week I get called into the school administration because Marina apparently had called them too and told them that I had gone missing for 3 to 4 days. I tried in vain to keep it together and just bursted into tears in front of the secretaries, telling and showing them all this woman was putting me through, explaining my boundary setting issues, and they decided to immediately inform the professors and find a solution that would have allowed me to not have any more contacts with her. But before they could take any actions, Marina and I were informed one more student was going to join our group. We'll call him Tanner. Nothing much to say about him. He's super nice, and did help out that following week by not complying to Marina's demands and unreasonable standards, insisting I take time off to do my own things too. For some reason she never beached about decisions made by Tanner. In my last call with them, Marina goes on another unhinged rant. She claims she's being gang-stalked and sabotaged by Big Pharma because she had invented a miracle ointment that could reconstruct any sort of biological tissue. She said she tested it on the hand of a friend of hers that had third-degree burns, claiming she saw the nerves, tendons, muscles and skin grow back, saving the hand. She then added that a prototype of said ointment, that mostly consisted of garlic and aloe, cured her husband from cancer a few years back. She also added how after an accident over a decade ago, the doctors decided to sabotage her womanhood during an emergency surgery to prevent her from having children. More of the Big Pharma sabotages involved several lawsuits she was involved in. She concludes that she's taking SMM classes with us because she wants to learn how to communicate with social media and the new generations. I'm personally afraid she's gonna try to scam desperate people into buying her BS garlic and aloe miracle cure. An incident happened the next day before class. A friend decided to sit next to me since that class of the day wasn't going to involve the group projects. We put our stuff on the desk and since we were early, decided to go into the next room to get a coffee. Marina comes in and we hear a commotion in the classroom. When we peek inside we see her tossing my friends who I sit beside stuff to another desk. My friend asked what the hell she was doing, and Marina just coldly responded the seat next to her is mine in reference to me. I nodded at my friend as if to say it's okay to try and defuse the situation before it escalated. 2 days later, we get informed that I was swapped from Marina's group to another one. I will say that finally I'm working with the girl I made friends with and we're having a lot of good fun. So well, I thought it was over. No more of Marina's weird poop, right? Right? Wrong. The calls and messages from her never ended. Actually, she started obsessively calling the school and the professors as well to protest about the decision of removing me from her group. Her texts were filled with weird trivia questions about random topics or very personal questions, up to 50 to 60 texts per day. At this point I stopped responding almost entirely to her, and screenshotting everything she was sending me. This leads us to the latest incident. Marina, in class, asked the professor a question that involved climate change. He replied and then asked us about our opinion. 2 people spoke, and then I did, all of us giving examples of people or brands getting cancelled for sharing political stances unwisely, and how a problematic or controversial history or presence on social media might negatively impact one's chances of employment. It was only once back home I realized Marina had sent me several rage-filled texts, claiming I was incredibly rude to have answered her question instead of letting the professor answer, and that she was expecting my apologies. I wrote a long text to her explaining myself, told her I would not apologize since I had done nothing wrong, and finally blocked her number. Since then she's been missing all classes, which is nice because I really didn't want her to try and confront me in person. But it's what I've learned today from one of my classmates during break that left me horrified and pushed me to write this post. One of my classmates, we'll call her Yellen, told me that Marina and her had been exchanging texts from time to time, mostly because Yellen took pity on Marina. Thinking like I did at first, she was just some weird old and lonely lady. In one batch of texts Marina goes into detail about her husband that had passed away from cancer a few years back. Some of the texts read, "We fought tooth and nail, we didn't bend over to the higher ups or God, but they took him away from me anyway. I was so close to keeping him with me, at least I know he trusted and followed me until the end." These are verbatim, because after putting two and two together me and why, we figured she's either delusional and lying about everything, or she tried to cure her husband from cancer with her ointment instead of traditional medicine, effectively unaliving him. Also, we found out she's already selling her services inside of a SPA belonging to a relative of hers, using the name she picked for our project. She's also been using my work for her personal social media pages involving her services, which explains why she was so obsessive about supervising my work. She was basically getting free commissions out of me.